They understand principles, and principles work no matter what the economy.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair, and you can verify right back there is the podcast chair if you are on YouTube. By the way, folks, if you missed episode number 822, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that, as it was our announcement that we are going back to the video format. So if you're used to listening to the Appraiser Coach as you drive around doing your comp photos, just know that you can watch now the Appraiser Coach, the sausage being made, if you will, the behind the scenes, the different camera angles. By the way, I've got a new camera angle. I want to show it to you here. Even since that episode, this is our first full episode when it comes to the Appraiser Coach podcast back on YouTube. But I want to show you this new angle high up there. Got one on the top left, if you will, looking down, and then of course that third angle is the one on the side. Whoops, that's the front. I've still not learned how to name my cameras here. By the way, the other thing you might notice is I switch cameras. I get a bit of a lag. I've been on the internet for about 2 hours this morning, trying to figure out how to fix that lag. My understanding is this, and I'm not a tech person at all. But my understanding is that the lag is caused from one camera turning off and the other one turning on, and maybe, self-focusing. I've tried different settings and different things. If you happen to be a tech expert when it comes to this and would love to help the Appraiser Coach out so that you don't have to deal with lag, it lags for about a second when I switch camera angles, which is fine. The audio stays the same. You won't notice it on that end. It's just the camera angle and the camera lagging. But I can't figure it out. I've been on YouTube. I've been all over Google. Can't figure it out. It's beyond my pay grade. But if you happen to have a little expertise in this area, you could tell me how to either keep my cameras on all the time so that when I switch, it doesn't have to catch up to itself. I don't think it's hardware. I've got a very, very fast computer. I've got everything going through the hubs that are also powered hubs, so there's no lag there. Anyway, if you could help me, I would truly, honestly appreciate it very much. I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that I use for my appraisal work, and you should as well. Alamode.com, spelled ALAMODE.com. Synapse, you can find out more by going to spark4appraisers.com, spark4appraisers.com, and clicking on the Synapse button. All right, folks, interesting to live in the world today when it comes to valuation. There's a lot going on. And some would say there's a lot not going on as well. And I think that that's key to help understand and remember that to a very real extent, if you have placed all of your eggs or most of your eggs in the AMC/mortgage side of things, then, keep in mind that things have been reduced. As far as volume goes, why the interest rates have come up. The beginning of 2021 was a crazy, crazy time. 2022, same way. About halfway through 2022, as the interest rates came up, our volume dropped dramatically. I think we see that across the board. I think that that's just the way that the world is right now. And here's the thing, folks. A lot of this is not really up to you, meaning a lot of this cannot be handled on your micro level. You can only control what's in your environment, your immediate environment. And consequently, when you get outside that sphere of influence, as Stephen Covey talked about, you get outside of that realm and there's not a whole lot of influence that you can have. In other words, you are not the Federal Reserve chair. You can't make decisions when it comes to the interest rates. And even if you were, you probably couldn't make those decisions in a vacuum. So in a very real sense, and all of us are feeling this at this time, right? In a very real sense, we are beholden to the man. We are beholden to the government. We are beholden to economics. We are beholden to the greater economic factors that are happening in our lives. And it has a very real effect on us today, has a very real effect on us as far as the mortgage interest rates and how that relates to our volume as an appraiser. Now, I've said on this microphone before, I will say again, that if you really look at where we're at in 2023 and go back to what I call the last normal year for appraisals, 2019, many of us are actually higher in volume than we were then, or at least we're kind of at that same level. So on a very real basis, I want you to remember that we haven't seen a drop in volume as much as we saw a rise in volume for the last couple of years. Does that make sense? In other words, we are comparing ourselves to last year and going, oh my gosh, we're even comparing ourselves to last month or the last 6 months and saying, oh my gosh, I was making $10,000 a month and now I'm making $2,000 a month. And what the hell happened? And what am I going to do? And we forget that we're making $2,000 a month in 2019. Now I'm throwing out, crazy numbers, not real numbers, obviously, but the point is, sometimes we get caught up in what we feel is normal. And as a consequence, we forget that normal is not normal. And by that, I mean, what's normal may be 2019, and therefore we're really not doing too bad. Now, that being said, as a coach, it's impossible for me to not feel empathy, sympathy, and a kinship to those that I coach. And recently, I have been on a lot of coach calls with some worried clients who are saying, Dustin, I mean, I get it. I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to stay upbeat, but man, this is hard. I got used to a certain lifestyle and even putting money away. I mean, that's unheard of as a sole proprietor, right? I was putting money away for a rainy day. And now that rainy day is here and that savings is starting to be eaten up, and it's scary. And I hear this word a lot. It's scary, right? It's frightening. It's disturbing. When is this going to change? Well, first of all, again, let's establish some things that I think are very, very important here. Number one, very important to remember, we cannot control the macro economics. We talked about that in the beginning today. That being said, you absolutely can, and I'm going to say should, all right, should control your micro environment. I've been of this mindset from the beginning, right? Now, I spent, as I've told you before, the first 12 years of my appraisal career, I spent it like everybody else, right? I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was working 60 plus hours, the whole thing. And then I discovered the principles of prosperity, put them into my life, failed miserably multiple times, but eventually learned what works and what doesn't work. Again, continue to fail on a regular basis, right? But we learn from our mistakes. We learn from those things that we do and say to ourselves, you know what, I can do a little bit better next time. I can learn from this and I can grow on this and I can move in the right direction. Now, that being said, there's only so much you can control on the top. What do we need to do to control the bottom? Meaning, what do we need to control ourselves? Well, I talk about it often, right? It's hard work. It's honesty. It's working on your business, not in your business. It's the law of delegation. It's the law of technology. It's the law of systems. It's getting systems in place. I was on a coach call this morning, and God bless him. I love this client. He's been a long-term client of mine. And he said, Dustin, I am slower than I've ever been. And I love it. And I laughed and I thought, that is the best ever, right? And then he went on to tell me what he has been doing over the last couple of weeks in improving his systems, in finishing up his assembly line, his SOPs or his procedural manual. These are the things that he's working on. In other words, he's slow in volume, but do you think he's going to sit back and just do nothing? Heck no. He's going to take this opportunity to improve. He's going to take this opportunity to become better. He's going to take this opportunity to take those back burner items, which, by the way, should have never been back burner items. But let's face it, we were all so busy, we could hardly keep our nose above water in 2019, 2020, 2021, first part of 2022, right? Well, I shouldn't say 2019, 2020 to 2022. Say that 10 times fast. It was about what? May, June, maybe, when things really started to slow down. And we got used to this, but it was still a lot of work, a lot of hours. Well, what he's done is said, you know what? I'm slow as far as volume goes, but that doesn't mean I can't prepare myself for the next big thing. And by the way, that next big thing is coming. I heard a rumor lately that we have lost 20% of our active appraisers over the last 6 months. Now, I have no idea if that is a true number. I have no way of verifying that. If you do, let me know. Comment below. By the way, YouTube is so much easier to comment. So if you're on YouTube, if you're in your office and you're listening to this and you want to see this, I highly recommend going to YouTube. Again, go to the Appraiser Coach. Just type in the space appraiser space coach, right? Subscribe. And those new episodes will drop. We're going to do this indefinitely now. This is our first episode on video, as I mentioned earlier, but this is going to be a thing moving forward. Folks, if you want to see me talk with my hands, I talk with my hands a lot. If you want to see how the sausage is made and you see me talk with my hands, you can do that. And you can see my little, what I call my broom closet, this spacious 100 square foot closet that I affectionately call my studio. But I invite you over to YouTube. But the point is this, folks. Sorry to get off in the weeds. The point is this, right? These numbers, if they exist, okay, great. I would love to hear more about that. But I guarantee, because I know anecdotally of several appraisers that have hung it up. I've had several appraisers come to me and say, Dustin, I was kind of there anyway, but this kind of pushed me, this slowdown kind of pushed me to say, you know what? Yeah, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. I'm looking to do something else or retire or what have you, right? And I'm helping at least 2 clients right now, helping them to shut down or get ready to move on to the next big thing as far as coaching goes on that side. So the point is this, folks, anecdotal or not, we have less appraisers now than we had 6 months ago. Now, that bodes well for those of you who are able to stick it out. That bodes well for those of you who say, you know what, I get it. And we have these ebbs and flows. We talk about here often that this is a cyclical market. It goes up, it goes down. Right now, we're down. Okay, fine. What does that look like later on? Well, I don't know. But I do know that with a cyclical market comes cycles, right? That's the definition. And if we're down now, there's going to be a time that we're going to be back up. Now, if you go from 40,000 appraisers to 30,000 appraisers to 20,000 appraisers, I mean, do the math, folks. If you got 50% less appraisers and then things go back up, you know what? Hang on tight. We might have another boom. But as I was talking to 2 different clients this morning, both of them dealing with similar things, even the guy who said, hey, I'm slow and I love it, he still said, I'm still a little bit apprehensive, right? How long is this going to last? What does this look like? Am I going to be able to pay my bills a month from now? I don't know, right? These are things that we should be thinking about moving forward. And so I wanted to take an opportunity today to talk about what I'm going to label the 3 things every appraiser should be doing. The 3 things that every appraiser should be doing. By the way, if you're on video, do you want to see what my notes look like for an episode? I hardly ever, let me switch cameras here, hardly ever actually do notes anymore. It's usually just a topic and then it's, whoops, I don't want that camera. I still need to figure out how to label my cameras. They're all labeled HD Pro Webcam C920. By the way, when I called for tech help earlier, if that helps you, it's a Logitech 920, a C920 on all 3 cameras. So they all look the same. So I don't know which one's which, but there's my notes, folks. There you go. I sat down and said, I need to do an episode. I know you can't even read that because it is chicken scratches, but that's it. 3 things every appraiser should be doing. And then I've got 1, 2, 3. I want to tell you what those are. First, I want to break and tell you about Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that I use on this very computer all the time to do appraisal write-ups. It's the software that I've used forever because it's the best. I mean, what else is there to say? It's the best. Alamode.com. That's where you find out more. Pick up the phone, call them at 800. That's 1-800-ALAMODE. Synapse. What is Synapse? Well, folks, imagine you are called before a judge and the judge says, I see you use $65 a square foot for your adjustment. Could you tell me where that $65 a square foot comes from? Or maybe you're standing before the state board and the state board says, I see that you made a $65 a square foot adjustment and we would love to see the work file to support that. Or let's say that that you have a revision request from one of your clients, and you're freaked out because you don't want to be, dropped as far as a vendor for them, and we are all right now holding on to our clients very tightly, which is something I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. And you're afraid of losing that client, and that client says, "Hey, can you explain where that $65 a square foot adjustment came from?" Folks, can you answer that question? Can you answer the question, where did the $65 a square foot come from? You can if you're using Synapse. Find out more by going to spark4appraisers.com. Again, it is spark4appraisers.com. All right, welcome back to the program, everybody. The topic today, the episode today, stems from recent coaching that I have done with my friends, my clients, appraisers across the nation, and many of them have the same or similar questions. Dustin, what should I be doing right now? Now, we can talk about what you should have been doing, right? My good friend Blaine, I know he didn't coin this term, but it's the first time I heard it used in this context. Blaine is famous for saying, "Dig your well before you're thirsty." Right? There's a lot of different ways to say this. Prepare, get your root cellar prepared before the tornado comes. I've heard it many different ways, but I like Blaine's analogy: dig your well before you're thirsty. Well, folks, we can talk about the fact that many of us are starting to get thirsty, and we didn't take the time to dig our well. To me, that mattereth not. The point is, we are where we are. You can't go back and fix the past. So we are where we are. So the question is, okay, Dustin, maybe I didn't dig my well like I should have before, but here I am. What is your recommendation? Where do we go from here? Where do I go from here? Well, folks, I want to give you 3 things that I believe strongly you should be doing right now. And I want you to take notes on this, just like I have, right? Here they are. There's my notes. 3 things that every appraiser should be doing. And I'm talking every appraiser. By the way, I have several clients that are doing very well. Most of them in my mastermind programs, and we talk about these things all the time. They put these principles into play, and many of them didn't do that either. Right? They're human just like any of the rest of us, right? These things, we can sit around a table in a mastermind meeting and we can talk about what we should do. And we do that, right? That's very important. The question is, what do you do when your boots on the ground back in your office? Do you actually follow through with those things that you committed to do? I can promise you, and folks, this is not hyperbole. This is absolutely more than anecdotal. I could scientifically prove this if I took the time to quantify it. Ready for this? Those that complete their homework from the mastermind are doing quite well. Now, they may not be doing as well as they were before, right? And when I say before, I mean, let's say smack dab in the 2021 era, because again, a lot of this is macro that we don't really have control over. But I guarantee with a capital G that they are doing better than their competition is, because they get it. They understand principles, and principles work no matter what the economy. I'm going to share with you 3 practices that are based on principles. The principle is this, folks. It's called networking. It's called relationships. That's the principle. The principle is real in any sales. Well, Dustin, I'm not in sales. I'm in appraisal. Folks, you're in sales. Trust me, if you're sitting there watching these fax machine behind you and hoping that it's going to ring, by the way, I want to switch camera angles here to prove to you that I do not, wrong camera angle. I'm getting used to it, I promise. You see that? No fax machine back there. None. We got rid of that a long time ago, but I know some of you are working with fax machines and you're sitting there and you're watching that fax machine like a hawk and you can't wait for it to ring. Folks, if that is your strategy, you might be one of those appraisers that's headed for divorce. Well, maybe actually in your marriage as well. I hope not. I don't want to joke about divorce. But finances do have something to do with that. But I'm talking about finance. I'm talking about divorce in the form of your career. You might be talking about a forced retirement if you're looking at that fax machine and hoping every day that it rings. Rather than that, may I suggest 3 practices? Are you ready? Practice number 1, one of the first things that every appraiser should be doing during a downturn is fostering your current relationships. Well, Dustin, that's easy to say. What does that even mean? I don't even talk to these people. It's an AMC. It's a nationwide company. It's the president of a bank. I don't see the president of the bank. Folks, if that is your attitude, then I guarantee you are not going to survive. Now, you might survive the next couple of months, but are you going to survive a year or so? I don't know what the cycle of, Dustin, are you predicting this is going to last a year or so? Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't know. I really don't. And no, I'm not. I'm not predicting it's going to last a whole year, but I am predicting that it's going to last a while. The question is, are you going to last a while? Number one, foster your current relationships. What does that mean? Well, folks, what does fostering any relationship mean? Well, I don't care if you're talking about a marriage or the relationship between you and your children or your sisters or your brothers or your parents or your friends, your neighbors. It all comes down to one thing. I literally 1 hour ago was sitting across the table at a local Mexican restaurant that I walked to from here with my brother, my younger brother, the brother that I love to death. And we haven't caught up in forever. And we sat there and I said, man, how long has it been since we had lunch together? And you know what he said to me? And I was embarrassed. 2018. He says, I was looking back at pictures, at a picture we took at our last luncheon together, and it was 2018. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible brother. He goes, well, I am too. But the thing is, folks, is in order to foster a relationship between brothers, you got to have lunch every once in a while. You got to communicate. You got to talk to one another. And that's the key here with any relationship. You've got to talk. If you're not talking, then your relationship is going to suffer. So whatever that means between you and your AMCs and your local lenders and your private lenders and your attorneys and your realtors, folks, number one, foster current relationships. Do it through communication. Number two, rekindle old relationships. What does that mean, Dustin? Well, let me give you an example. One of the sponsors here at the Appraiser Coach podcast is ANow Software. ANow makes it very, very easy to go in and see which clients are giving you business and which ones don't. It's really easy to go back and say, you know what, which ones used to give me business but I haven't seen anything from them in a while. That's the type of relationships I'm talking about. Rekindling old relationships. Look up people that you used to work for that for whatever reason, whether it's your fault or not, you've neglected that relationship. And maybe it might be as simple as, hey, it was the middle of 2021. I could hardly keep my head above water. They didn't pay quite as well as some others. And I let them they went from a B client to a Y client. Well, guess what, folks? Sometimes you got to look at those Y client lists and say, are they still a Y client? Do I believe in redemption? Do I believe that I can give them another shot? And you reach out to them and say, listen, we haven't talked in a while, and this is embarrassing because I know there's 1,000 appraisers knocking on your door, but I hope we can have a conversation. I hope we can talk about what it is that we can do to continue to work together, because I would love to rekindle. I would love to go back to that relationship, whatever that looks like. And folks, and sometimes it's as easy as that. So number one, foster current relationships. Number two, rekindle the old relationships. Number three, you probably already guessed it at this point, find new relationships. What does that mean, folks? Well, guess what? There's no Tinder for the relationship between an appraiser and a client that I know of. Maybe that's the new thing, the new app. If you are tech savvy, maybe you ought to consider that. Tinder for appraisers, right? But the point is this, folks. You've got to go out and you've got to find new clients. They are everywhere. I will give you a little helpful hint that my mastermind students and I have been using for years now. Really, really great resource called Richie May. I will say nothing more than that. Figure it out, and just know that it's a great resource to find what clients are in your local area, so that you have an opportunity to, well, kindle some new relationships, find some new relationships. Now, this may not necessarily be on the mortgage side. We have seen a huge uptick of new relationships when it comes to the private work, because guess what? Appraisers are hungry. They're reaching out. They're talking in front of realtors. They're reaching out to attorneys. They're doing things that they've never done before because they have to. Now, the key here is that you shouldn't feel desperate enough, but guess what? Some of you are, right? You should have dug that well, but you didn't. So guess what? It's never too late. It truly isn't. It is not too late to kindle a relationship that will help to establish you moving forward. And whether that be lender work or whether that be private work, folks, it is out there. I promise you, there is still work to be had. There's still work to be able to be utilized. I highly, highly recommend that you do that. So the 3 things that every appraiser should be doing, I don't care how busy you are. I don't care if you have appraisal work coming out your ears, right? Every one of us were in that state in 2021. And if I had given this advice in 2021, some of you would say, yeah, I don't really need that, Dustin. Okay. So even if you're busy now, I promise you that will change. 3 things. Number 1, foster current relationships. Make sure those stay strong. Number 2, rekindle some old relationships. Look back at your Y clients and find out what you can do to rekindle that. Number 3, look for new clients. Folks, thank you for joining me on this inaugural full episode on YouTube. Again, if you're driving around taking your comp photos, I highly recommend that you go over to YouTube when you're at your desk. Check it out. Check out the 3 camera angles. Hopefully somebody out there can help me with the lag, but if not, it's still fun to kind of see how this thing is made, and it's good to have you there as well. Would welcome and love your comments below. Thank you for joining me, folks. Go out there, create some value for someone else. We will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.